Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's on DisneyPlus.com with a quick news update for you guys on the cost of Andor, a Star Wars story. But before we go any further, make sure you do hit that subscribe button to keep up with the latest Disney Plus news. So one of the very first series to ever get announced for Disney Plus was Andor. Now this was way back in like 2018 before Disney Plus even had its name. And it took a number of years for the series to finally hit Disney Plus in 2022, where it was called Andor. Then earlier this year, they kind of gave it a rebrand and called it Andor, a Star Wars story, obviously to kind of link up with Rogue One. We're going to be getting the second season. It's going to be arriving in April of 2025 on Disney Plus around the world. The series focuses on Cassian Andor's journey to discover the difference that he can make. Set about 5 years before the events of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, the series brings forward the tale of the rebellion against the Empire and how the people and the planets became involved in this era filled with danger, deception and intrigue, where Cassian will embark on the path that is destined to turn him into a rebel hero. And then the second season, it follows Cassian as he evolves into the leader of the emerging rebel alliance. Cassian has been a reluctant hero before, but the higher purpose in the fight for freedom against the Empire fuels the Andor we'll meet next year. Now originally, Andor was set to be a 5-season show, and they were going to have one season for each year in the run-up to Rogue One. However, that all kind of changed in the production, and so the first season covers the first year, but with the second season, they're going to do something a little bit different. So for every 3-episode block, that's going to cover just 1 year in the build-up. So you're going to have 3 years as a story, and then it'll move on. So we're going to end up covering those 4 years, leading right up to the events of Rogue One. Now, there's probably a very good reason for this, because this show has cost a lot of money. And doing 5 seasons of the show, well, basically, I don't think Disney wanted to spend this amount of money, and while I think the show is easily one of the best ones, it didn't do a huge amount of viewership. Initially, a lot of people didn't like it because it wasn't kind of giving that traditional Star Wars feel. It was a bit more serious, a bit more kind of like an FX HBO show, but a lot of adult fans really enjoyed it, and over the years, it's just built up more and more fans, and yeah, a lot of people are really excited for this second season. I know I definitely am. But there's a reason why, and I'm going to break down some of the costs, which Forbes has revealed, because they have said that in a public filing, this is something that they have to do here in the UK, where because the show's production company is a limited company, it has to put out this information. So it's revealed that the first 2 seasons have cost £504.8 million, which is about $625 million. And the second season of that has cost £231.1 million, or $290.9 million. So there's obviously going to be some more costs as well with like production costs and marketing, though that generally gets put onto the studios. It's kind of a weird thing here in the UK that the companies have to be set up, because that way they get benefits from the government. They get about a 25% tax rebate kind of for how much money they put into it. So that's definitely a big reason why a lot of shows like Andor get made here. There's lots of other reasons why Andor costs a lot more money to make, because it had real sets. And so that obviously is better, easier in some ways than having a green screen, but it also costs more. But also more importantly, we had the pandemic and we've had the strikes, all of which have helped kind of cause delays and extra precautions and stuff, which have bumped up that price point to why it costs so much. Now, obviously there's reflections here against like the cost of making a movie, because like Rise of Skywalker was over £200+ million. So you're thinking, well, why have they spent so much? But you've got to look at it minute for minute, sort of hour by hour. Andor is much cheaper to make. In terms of like 2 hours, you're probably looking at about 60 million. But when you obviously put them all together, because this show is a massive show, because obviously over those 24 episodes, that's a lot of time. It's probably going to be about 20 hours, much longer than we've seen with the other series. So that's why, you know, if you look at it from that point of view, Andor is relatively much cheaper to make. But they have spent a lot of money on this show, and it's also, I think, a major reason why Disney is going back to theatrical films, because they can put out that money into a movie and they can kind of claw it back through box office and through sort of more merchandise and, you know, direct sales and all the rest of it. But if it goes to Disney Plus, it's kind of much harder to get that money back, and I think we're really going to see Star Wars series being a lot smaller in scope. Yeah, so that's why, unfortunately, I think we're having a major reason why Andor Season 2 is the final season, and they've just kind of sped everything up to get this one out of the way. Now, obviously, the quality's there. I've got no doubt this next season is going to be amazing, but hence why we're seeing a lot less shows coming out. We're going to obviously get Ahsoka Season 2. That looks like that's going to be dropping in 2026. But yeah, we're down into the zone of one season a year is probably all we're going to be getting, along with films. Obviously, we've got Mandalorian and Grogu coming out in May of 2026 in cinemas. That was going to be the 4th season of The Mandalorian. They did what they did with Moana 2. I've kind of flipped that. Luckily, they did it kind of before they started filming, so they were able to sort things out a little bit more. But yeah, so that's kind of this big thing. You can see why. The amount of money they are spending, and it's also how they're making Disney Plus be profitable by basically not spending this huge amount on these shows. If you think of how much they were spending on Marvel and Star Wars shows, and they were costing hundreds of millions, and now they've kind of looked and gone, yeah, this isn't cost effective. We need to bring these costs down. For example, like Agatha and Echo this year, those shows were well low of $40 million to make, and trying to make a big Star Wars series with all the special effects just ain't gonna work. And I always think back to the idea of Star Wars was always about being in cinemas, and Star Trek was on television because the quality was lower. And if you're trying to do Star Wars on a Star Trek budget, it's not going to work. So I'd rather they just focus on spending that money per minute on making it excellent than trying to stretch out. But yeah, Andor, that's cost a lot of money. Over £500 million, over $600 million. That's a lot of money. And so they really need to get people to be watching it. It's why when something like The Acolyte, which wasn't as expensive as Andor, but if they're not getting those views, they just can't justify the expense of doing it. Now, obviously, you could say they need to increase and improve the quality of it and really kind of get a much better handle on the scripts and the acting and the special effects to really kind of make it worthwhile. But I can also see why they're kind of shifting over to doing films, because they get a better chance of getting their money back and being able to invest that. Yeah, I think we're just going to be seeing a lot less Star Wars. But yeah, the price of this Andor show really does highlight. Now, I think it looks like it's going to be a great series and there's a lot of money well spent, but if they don't get the views and they don't get that ad revenue and all the rest of it, it's not really going to be worth it from Disney's point of view. But let me know, do you think this is, are they spending too much? Are they not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow and subscribe, and I shall see you guys soon. Laters.